Godoy. Thank you so much for being here today, presenting all the way from Alberta. John is a professional speaker, trainer, entrepreneur, award-winning inventor, healthy lifestyle expert, and economics graduate from Queen's University. He's not new to public speaking. In fact, over the course of his public speaking journey, he's had the pleasure of addressing audiences in 28 countries on 6 continents. That's incredible. And also relevant to the folks that are part of our incubator program, John was a mentor at the Chicago startup incubator called 1871. He also co-founded an award-winning invention called SitFlow, which I believe we're going to hear a little bit more about in 2017. And that was actually featured in Fast Company, Inc. and British Vogue. He's also a healthy lifestyle coach, personal trainer, and he happens to have coached baseball and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So welcome, John.
Thank you, Melissa, and thank you, Jay. Thank you for the Innovation Quarters for hosting, and thank you all of you who are in attendance for spending your time here today. I'm going to pull up the slide that I'm going to be working from today, kind of share with you really ultimately 6 strategies that I believe will help you in developing your business and yourselves over the course of however long you choose to do it. And it's designed not only for entrepreneurs who have companies with several people or multiple people, even tens, to solopreneurs. All right, so let me just pull up the screen here. Melissa, are you able to see the screen?
Looks good.
Excellent. So welcome to Leading with Courage. As Melissa said, my name is John Godoy. There's going to be 3 things that I'd like to really kind of cover through the course of today's presentation. And it's not, again, like I said, it's not going to be a formal speech or a presentation. It's going to be sharing insights that I learned in the process of bringing a product to life and also supporting it with 2 sole proprietorship businesses, service-based businesses that I had through the course of close to 20 years. So the first thing that we're going to be covering is making tough decisions amidst uncertainty. As we all know, and as perhaps many of you have already realized, entrepreneurship is not easy. Whether you have a team that you're working with or whether you're working by yourself, it's very unclear, and oftentimes you don't necessarily know what you do. Some of you have become entrepreneurs and solopreneurs because you got tired of working for somebody else, or you had this idea that you wanted to bring to life, or perhaps some of you, and I threw myself into this group as well, you kind of fell into entrepreneurship as a way to do what you want to do and sustain yourself. You may not necessarily become super rich. You might not create ultimately the next Tesla vehicle, but you're able to create something that is of service to the community and will help support yourself and your families. Right? Second thing is to overcome personal challenges. That's a huge part of entrepreneurship, and being able to do that effectively, whether it's overcoming burnout, dealing with resilience issues, managing conflict, not only with perhaps people that report to you and clients, but also, and quite often, the people who might be your business partners. And I know what that's like intimately well. And the last part of it is about enhancing communication skills to be effectively able to lead your people and to influence people outside of your organization why your product or why your service is of value to them. And one thing that I really want to stress is when we talk about the concept of leadership, I look at it from 3 perspectives. The first perspective is leadership with authority, right? Maybe it's a command and control perspective. So maybe you are the leader of an organization, you have multiple people reporting to you, and you have to lead them, right? That's one form of leadership. The second form of leadership that we're also going to be addressing and looking at is self-leadership. Because as the leader of a company or leader of your own business, you need to be able to have the discipline and the leadership to lead yourself, to be a person that you yourself would follow, right? And then the third form of leadership is leadership without authority, or leadership through influence. And that is the outward facing leadership that you convey to perhaps investors or perhaps to potential clients, that you are someone worth investing in, you are someone worth following. Because in today's day and age, people want to see the face behind the product. They want to see the face behind the service. And one of the biggest challenges that I've seen, and perhaps you've seen as well, is that a lot of founders are very, very competent at what they do. They have great ideas, but they don't necessarily have the human skills, the communication skills, the leadership skills to display that out to the world outside. And the way of looking at this is you can have the greatest idea in the world, but if you do not have the ability to sell it and sell yourself, the product falls on deaf ears. So today we're going to be sharing with you some strategies that will help you kind of think about how you can develop those skills in yourself, for yourself, so that you're better able to sell your product and your service. A little bit more of an extension about me so I can give you a little bit of a social proof about my background. So in 2005, roughly, about 20 years ago, I moved to the United States from Canada. I'd spent some time in Toronto and going to school in Kingston. And I'd gone there to become a corporate recruiter. When I got to the United States, my job fell to the wayside. It just disappeared, and I had to figure out what to do. And I got, just by chance, into a job where I became a personal trainer, but not in a gym, but just for high net worth individuals, high value celebrity type people in the city of Chicago. And through that, I was able to meet high profile entrepreneurs, billionaires, millionaires, Oprah, people like that, people who would significantly impact how I see the world and how I approach professionalism, work, and entrepreneurship in many respects. And they encouraged me just to push me out to start my own business. And that's how I said a little bit earlier, I never intended to be an entrepreneur. I kind of fell into it. And so I started John Godoy Fitness. And that was a service-based business that just did in-home personal training and corporate wellness programs throughout the city of Chicago. Similarly, at around roughly a few years later, I met another client through my training business who is a Hall of Fame speaker, who encouraged me to go into speaking and develop that skill as a way of marketing my fitness business. And with that individual, I arranged a bartering agreement where I would not charge them anything for training, and they would teach me everything that they knew about professional speaking. And one thing that I will tell you, for my speaking business, I have never gotten a single piece of business outside of doing presentations and workshops. So developing the ability to speak effectively is a powerful leadership skill that will help you sell and market your business. Right? So I continue to do that speaking business. And the third business that I, again, kind of fell into is SitFlow. And SitFlow is the world's first Mayo Clinic certified and researched fitness product that is suspended, that allows users to stay active while remaining sitting. It was designed to address the problem of sitting as the new smoking. And over the course of 9 years, I spent 9 years of my life bringing that product to life. So a lot of the lessons that I've learned are going to be coming more specifically from SitFlow than the other two for today. But for those of you who are solopreneurs, I believe that some of my background in the service-based businesses will also come out, and well as for those of you who are in the product-based businesses, perhaps some of the things that I've learned along my journey in building a product will come to the surface, and you might find things that you can take away from that. Just to give you a quick glimpse of the product, this was Hover. Well, I call it Hover, called SitFlow. Short of it is we got into a legal issue with Under Armour. They came out with a shoe called the Hover. That's what our product SitFlow was originally called. They came out with a shoe. We got into a legal battle, things that we could never have ever anticipated. And the short of it is that we had to change the name to SitFlow. But anyways, this is the product, SitFlow. It's essentially a horizontal bar with omnidirectional discs suspended from the bottom of a desk or a freestanding stand by a strap, and the user puts their feet on it and can swing in any different direction that they want to, keeping them active. I was speaking prior to this presentation with Jay, and he asked, did you first start off with a chair? Absolutely. When we first invented the product, which was originally called Hover, now SitFlow, we had actually designed a chair. But after we put the product out to the market, we found out that nobody was interested in the chair. We thought it was a great idea, but nobody was interested. They were interested in our foot activity device aspect of it. And so we had to completely pivot and change direction. And so one of the things that we're going to be touching on is kind of listening to the market and getting out of your own head of what you think will work best, because the market will tell you. So that is the product. Over the course of 9 years, we kicked everything off with a successful crowdfunding on Indiegogo. If those of you are familiar with it, it's a crowdfunding platform that's specifically aimed towards technology product. When you looked at our product, it was what you saw may have been just a physical product with a suspended strap and horizontal disc. We attached an activity tracker that could be connected to someone's watch, activity watch. that allowed it to be a technology device. And then we had a successful, as I said, successful crowdfunding where we made 564,000 US in about 40 days through luck, persistence, and some very specific strategies and tactics that we had learned. And then over the course of multiple years, we made several $1 million. And in 2018, I stepped away from formal co-leading of that organization, and then went more into the professional speaking side of life. So that's kind of like the background, the lead up to what we're going to be sharing today. I know you're here for this stuff, but I just wanted to share the beginning part to show you that to some degree, I do know what I'm talking about. I never intended to be an entrepreneur, and I didn't know anything about it. And I had to learn a lot of these things along the way. And if you can take some of these strategies with you, I think it'll help dramatically accelerate the speed at which you become successful, whatever your gauge for that is in your individual businesses. So the first tip is just simply to avoid overthinking, action and iteration over perfection. The basic concept of embrace the idea of the minimum viable product. So we made a mistake in this. When we were bringing SitFlow to life, we spent about 5 years just making the product better and better and better and better and better and better. And we never actually took it out to the market. When we initially designed the product, we thought this is going to change the office landscape. The office is where people sit. This is where the money is. We're going to put it out there and design it for this. And that's what all our efforts was for. In fact, we were so much into honing and enhancing the product for that market that we opened up our offices and our research area right in front of a giant Home Depot. And we built our offices right there, where we rented our offices right there. And we did that for the purposes of being able to every single day spend an hour or two to walk into the Home Depot and just walk up and down the aisles, looking at all the existing products and materials and inventions and things that are out there, and just brainstorming, thinking, how can we enhance this product? But we did it for too long. And one of the things that the market told us once we finally launched the product is that this product wasn't designed for the office market. They weren't the people who were really interested in it. The people who were really interested in it were the people who had the actual immediate problem that needed to be solved. And the two markets that showed up for us were kids with ADHD and ADD in schools. And the second were primarily seniors and adults with deep vein thrombosis, blood clots in their legs. But we never would have identified that if we stayed in our own minds. And that's an important lesson that I really challenge you to think about. It's the idea of really taking more action and moving away from perfection. Wherever you can, get your product out as quickly as you can and get market testing, right? And that'll give you the confidence that the product that you're developing and you're building or you're providing is being designed for the right audience. Right? So that's the first one. Avoid overthinking, and then action over perfection. The second is to seek out a mentor and a group, and the Innovation Quarters is a perfect example of that. What a mentor will do is it will accelerate the speed of your learning, right? It'll accelerate the speed of your learning, so you don't end up making the same mistakes that they may have made over the course of their career. So I'll give you an example. So when we started our company, SitFlow, we had opened up our own office space. We had our own team, and we had our internal professionals. We're all kind of working on different aspects of the company. However, there was a lot of things that we did not know. We did not know a lot about the legal aspect of it. We didn't know a lot about the financial aspect of it. We didn't know so much about the intricacies of the technology or about product development. And we needed a resource or resources to help us. And that's why we got initially involved in the Chicago Tech Incubator 1871. Because just like the Innovation Quarters, they had weekly, if not monthly, events, seminars, where we could go and we can learn about all these different things that we did not know. Because prior to doing that, we tried to doing everything ourselves, and the best that we could do was a half backside job, if I can say, right? And so mentors at 1871 became a huge asset to us. The second important thing that 1871 or an incubator provided us was a network. So as I mentioned to you, we had our own office spaces. We did not need an office space to go to because we had one. But what we wanted to get access to was the network inside 1871, because they had their own intranet. They had their own internal communications board, internal, all the different companies within it would kind of share their information amongst each other to help each other out. We wanted access to that. So we could post job postings, we could ask questions, and people would be very open to helping. And through those two actions of going to the seminar, seeking out the mentors, and then joining that network, we developed the confidence that the decisions that we were making wasn't just our best guess, because we were able to bounce it off the mind of people who've already done that. So that's a great strategy to keep in mind. Now, for those of you who are solopreneurs, right, another group that you might consider, and this is a group that I joined for my fitness company. In the United States, it was called Vistage International. However, in Canada, it's called Tech Unlimited or Tech International. And what it is it's an international organization where entrepreneurs, senior leaders of companies, and even leaders of companies, they get together on a monthly basis, and they come together for a full day, and they help solve each other's problems. Now, the key part of Vistage that makes it so useful and so powerful is that every single member of each of these tech or Vistage groups that you're in must be from a different industry. So you could have somebody from law, somebody from a product development company, somebody from a pest control company, somebody from an engineering company. But they're all there not only for to be able to bounce ideas off of people, but to get diverse perspectives, right? Because one of the challenges of making good decisions in entrepreneurship is you can kind of get tunnel vision, or what we call the silo effect, where you're just kind of talking to people who are in the same industry. So if you're tech, maybe all the people who are around you are in tech. If you're in mining, everybody who you're bouncing ideas off is in mining. However, if you go to this group, and it costs money, I would say it's maybe about, when I was there, it was about $500 a month, right? But it's an investment. You're paired with a whole bunch of different people from all sorts of different groups, and just dramatically increases the speed at which you're able to create good decisions because you have diverse opinions. The other benefit of it is the accountability, because that's a huge challenge that a lot of entrepreneurs and solopreneurs have, especially solopreneurs. Unless you're extremely disciplined, staying disciplined to your goals and objectives is kind of tough. You can just keep pushing things down the road. And organizations like this really help with the accountability. Another aspect of Vistage and that tech offers is an accountability buddy. And so this might be something that you could take from today's session. Maybe another one of the members who are currently in the innovation quarters. You can just become an accountability buddy and meet them every 2 to 4 weeks and just bounce ideas off of each other. Because going at an entrepreneurial endeavor by yourself can become very lonely, and sometimes it's very difficult to stay accountable. So that's the second strategy that I would really challenge you to do, because this will dramatically increase your confidence in making decisions, because you're talking to people who are going through the same thing, who may give you diverse opinions, who may help you avoid your blind spots, right? And who will also keep you accountable. So that's the second strategy. The third strategy kind of falls into that area of self-leadership. And I told you at the beginning today that I'm no longer involved with the day-to-day running of SidFlow. I stepped away from that. So in June of 2018, I found myself around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I think it was like a Tuesday or Wednesday. I was sitting on Montrose Beach in Chicago. Montrose Beach is just a beach that's located just outside the main downtown area. And there's children running around, parents walking around. It's just midday. And I'm drinking. I have 4 bottles of wine in complete open area. I'm just drinking, and I don't generally drink because I had reached my limit. For close to 7 years, I had worked roughly 10, 12, 14 hours a day, 7 days a week or 6 days a week, whatever it was, just working. And I was burnt out. I didn't set any boundaries for myself. I had pushed away virtually anybody who was important to me. I hadn't seen my mother in 3 years. All my friends that I initially had kind of moved away from me, right? Because I had so focused, tunnel vision in my venture. Now, there's a lot of merit to be focused in your business because you have to be, but I would encourage you, so you don't burn out, that you do take self-care to mind, because a healthy, emotionally, physical, and mental leader is essential to create an environment where people feel motivated and driven to do their best work. Because if the leader is burnt out, chances are your stress is going to be high. And that oftentimes comes out and that can create a toxic work environment because you can become much more curt. You can become less compassionate. You can exhibit less empathy. You become less patient. And so taking care of yourself is absolutely essential. And so I was, to conclude the story, I was sitting on the beach, and that was literally it. In December of 2018, that same year, I had made the decision that I had been completely burnt out and I was going to leave the company. And I did. And I walked away from day-to-day operations of the organization. My partner continued to still run it, but I no longer have anything to do with the day-to-day because I had kind of reached my breaking point. And if I could go back to myself at the very beginning, I would give you the exact same advice that I would give you now: to set boundaries, have an outlet. Maybe it's a martial art, maybe it's a core group of friends, maybe it's a social activity, but ensure you do those. Nurture your relationships with your friends and your family, because if you don't, they will disappear, right? So that's the first point. That's the third point about setting boundaries for yourself. Another big stressor and challenge for entrepreneurs is having enough money to run the organization. In an ideal world, there'd be plenty of money to continue running your organization. You could dedicate yourself to your job 100%, right? 120%, if that's even a possibility, right? And that's what a lot of social media pushes. But quite often that isn't necessarily the reality, because you have to support a family. You don't have the luxury to live in a car. You don't have the luxury to essentially not have any possessions and just live in the cheapest possible apartment that you possibly can to support all your money going in and time going into the company. Quite often, you need to perhaps bite a bit of your own pride, right? And go, you know what? I need to support myself and the company by finding an alternative source of income. And that's where the side hustle comes in, right? Going, you know what? I'm not going to be able to dedicate all my time to this work. I'm going to find a side hustle. For myself, as I was building SitFlow, maybe I would work on SitFlow about 10 hours a day, as I pointed out, and then 4 to 5 hours a day, I'd be training. And whenever possible, I could speak. Whenever those things didn't work out, I got a job at Home Depot. And I got a Home Depot overnights and on the weekends to help bridge the gap, because all the money was going back into the company and I had to sustain myself, right? So don't be too proud to get a side hustle, right? Think about more of the long game versus just the short game, right? To be able to support yourself, sustain yourself, and keep the business going. And that's where having other sources of income comes in. And that will relieve a huge stressor and a big obstacle to essentially running your own business, is that financial security, because that will always be at the back of mind. The next is to foster open communication, right? A leader must foster open communication. And this is especially true from the perspective of if you have a team. So I had a company there was 4 co-founders, and there was, I think at the peak of it, we had 15 employees. Unfortunately, there were periods of time where the co-founders were constantly bickering and fighting with each other. I was part of blame to that. And we had arguments for hour and a half, 2 hours. There were periods of time where we could just not stand each other's company because we didn't communicate effectively with each other. And that trickled down to the employees. Not only did they see it, right, but it also impacted how we communicated with them, and that resulted in attrition. There was a period of time where we had lots of people leaving the company after a very short period of time because the toxic environment that it can create. Now, over time, we mitigated it and we improved it. Now, today, I'd like to give you one strategy to do it. And I'm going to use a simple example for this. So I had one of my business partners. He and I would always get into an argument. And conventional wisdom will tell you, if you feel you're going to get into a fight, emotions are going to get triggered, avoid the fight, right? Put it off to another time. And that's what we did. We was like, this is just going to go nowhere. Let's kind of step away. And we would do that. We would go step away and come back. But over time, animosity builds up. And especially if you haven't said anything to the other individual for a long period of time, the default has been avoidance. And this is something that a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of people who are very good at developing products and coming up with great ideas, sometimes engineers, confrontation is not your thing. You don't enjoy it, right? You kind of avoid it. And so we were avoiding it all. So going back to the story, we would separate and we'd come back, but the animosity was still there. And so that didn't work. So we had to choose a different medium of communication. And so what we ended up doing is that instead of coming back and talking, one of us would write an email to the other individual. So you'd write out the email, writing out the issue, explaining your thoughts, and then you'd go in and you'd edit it, get out all the you did this, you screwed up, you this, so that it was a very neutral message. And then the individual would email it to the other. The other person would then be able to look at that email and read it at a time when they themselves weren't angry, they themselves weren't hostile. And they could either respond, and then we could have a conversation, or at the very least, the information that needed to get passed on to the other individual was passed on, and it wasn't blocked out just because there was a lot of no listening going on because of the heatedness of the argument, right? And so this was a way to increase the chances that pertinent information and essential information was conveyed back and forth, even though there was conflict. So I would encourage you to develop the ability to have difficult conversations. And a good habit to get into is to start speaking a little bit more directly. Right? And if that makes you a little bit uncomfortable, if that's not your bag, then I would encourage you to try being a little bit more direct in your emails, right? And a way to gauge whether or not you're doing that is write a message to somebody you're having a conflict with and pop it into ChatGPT and ask, is this too direct, or is this too beating around the bush? How can I make it a little bit more direct? And it can give you a little bit of feedback. Conversely, if you're somebody, and this can also happen, if you're somebody who's very direct, very terse, and can come across as unempathetic, do the exact same thing, right? Add a little bit more empathy in it, because ultimately, human communication, for it to be effective, there's a relationship factor, right? You can look at that as an empathy factor and a message factor. You need to have both at a balanced level in effective communication. So that's the next strategy, foster open communication. And the last one that I just want to share with you is just to embrace this concept of becoming the spokesperson of your company. And this kind of touches on that third element of leadership that we talked about at the very beginning that I was going to address. The idea that you need to show leadership even though you may not have authority. I'll give you a little bit of an example of this. And you can think about this from the perspective of pitching. Pitching is an example of a situation where you have to convey not only what your product is, the value of it to a potential investor or a group of investors. You have to also pitch that you are someone that they can buy into, and they see that you could potentially be somebody worth putting their money and their efforts and their time behind. And if you don't have the ability to do that, your message and your product can fall flat unless you're lucky or your product is exceptionally good or some miracle happens. So I'll give you an example. So back in Chicago, we got invited to pitch at a big pitching event, and it was a little bit different because there were investors at the back, but there was also an audience of roughly 250 people. It was at the Chase Bank Auditorium, and it was a citywide contest, and I believe roughly 6 companies were selected. We were one of the companies that got selected, and it fell upon me to go up and pitch in front of this llarge group. And we got selected. We were told of the day, but before the date happened, we were taken to another building. We're connected with another organization, and that organization's role was specifically designed to prepare the pitcher or the entrepreneur, the leader of that company, the founder, to pitch and present. Because again, the organizers of this pitch competition knew that just because you have a great idea, just because you're the founder of the company, doesn't mean that you can sell it effectively. You may be able to sell it effectively in a conversation on a napkin with one-on-one. That could be comfortable, but in front of a large group, in front of a situation where there's a lot of pressure, being able to pitch yourself effectively isn't necessarily something that's ingrained in everyone. And so they trained us. They gave us training for the period of 3 weeks, 1 day a week, where we'd go in and we'd practice our pitches and we'd get feedback. And it was pretty brutal feedback. And then we would go out and pitch at this event, right? So what I would really encourage you all to do is to develop your speaking skills, your presentation skills. And it could be at a pitch, It could be for a trade show. It could be for a customer meeting. It could be for a chance encounter, whatever it might be. You develop these skills to be effectively able to articulate yourself and the value that your product brings to the other person. You significantly increases your chances to market your product and to increase your success. And you can do that by taking public speaking courses, taking training courses at the innovation quarters. I'm sure that they have communication skills courses that you can take there. It is the one skill that I encourage you to really develop that will help you sell and market not only your product, but yourself. So that's the last one. Become the spokesperson of your company. So just in review, okay, action over perfection, seek out a mentor and join a group, set boundaries for yourself, get multiple streams of income, other income, open communication lines, right? Foster open communication. And lastly, become the spokesperson for your organization. And that's it. Thank you for your time. And I think we'll have time for questions.
Thank you so much. What a great presentation. And I really loved how you outlined everything as well as a recap at the end. Thank you for putting that together. I'd like to open the floor to questions. Please type in the chat your questions, or if you prefer to verbally say your question, just raise your hand with the hand icon and we can unmute your mic. I can start with a question while we wait. I did really resonate with the first part of your presentation about, not waiting for perfection in order to launch. I think that a lot of people are maybe afraid, myself included, right? Afraid of going with a product or service like too early. Being a little bit picky as to how perfect you want it to be, but then never being able to get that feedback, right? Maybe wasting time on making it perfect for yourself, not knowing that it's not really perfect for everybody else. So do you have any tips on maybe knowing, like, when do I stop perfecting this? When do I go to market?
I would say when you get enough feedback from enough sources that tell you that they like the product. And it has to be kind of consistent sources. So I'll give you an example. So when we were bringing our product to market, we went everywhere we could. We were in the subway station in Chicago. We were at incubators. We went to businesses and we took our product. We went to retirement facilities and we put our product out there. We got different people to test it, everybody to give us feedback. And it started to show us more and more and more what was wrong with the product. In the beginning, we had lots of things that could be developed, right? Could be enhanced. So we enhanced it. And eventually got to the point that the criticisms kept coming back less and less, right? And certain demographics were finding much more value in it. And that was telling us, okay, this is time to get it out there, right? And put it out. In fact, when we did the crowdfunding, to be very honest with you, we didn't actually have a physical product yet. We had no real true product. We had launched with a concept, right? We had a prototype that worked. It was decent, but we're pretty sure that it would fall apart. But once we got super validation from the crowdfunding, we just built that, right? So just get it out there and test, and then just go with the MVP. There's a quote by the founder of LinkedIn. He goes, if you're not embarrassed by your first iteration, then you launch too late.
I love that. That's a great quote to tie that in. We do have a verbal question from Habby. Habby, I went ahead and unmuted your mic, so if you want to go ahead and ask your question, you can. You might just have to like unmute yourself. Your mic is enabled, but you just have to unmute yourself.
Oh, sorry for that. John, I want to thank you for this nice talk. I recognize myself when you were talking about overthinking. I'm kind of stuck there as a person. I've been thinking about my small business store for the past 2 years. And 3 years later, I'm still here. It's nothing to do with, like, you are a creator, you are inventing things. But in my as a registered nurse, I want to start a store and a small business, but I'm alone and I'm overthinking about, okay, I have kids, how I'm gonna do, I save for money to start this business, but I have in the same time get myself really uh, in this business that I'm gonna start because I'm alone. So I don't know how to do, I don't know where to start. 2 years later, I'm like, am I quitting my job? In the same time, my registered nurse job provide me with money to support my family. My store, not yet. So I have really hard time to find a nice balance. How can I do to invest time in my business? And how can I do to keep in the same time my job to provide myself income? So I really don't know. I don't know if overthinking is only the problem here, but I would like to have a kind of help, kind of strategy that you can give me, and to be able to do both.
Sure, Abby. Well, the answer is no. Well, part of it's overthinking, but you don't even know where to begin. And the answer is right here, Innovation Quarters. Join to become part of that cohort, right? And just ask to get involved with them and try to find a mentor, someone who can sit down with you and talk you through this. Like I can't give you an answer in terms of this is going to be the strategy to what you're going to do. But what I can tell you is that the longer you put it off, it's never going to happen, right? And there is some comfort knowing that you have the security of that other job while you learn, you build your business plan and you learn the steps that you need to take. And in fact, you can even potentially, I don't know what your business is, but you could start a little bit differently. So maybe you don't need a physical store to begin with. Maybe it can be an online store, or maybe you can start with just working with one or two clients who might be interested in your product, whatever it might be. There's ways to kind of test the waters to see if it's viable without actually jumping heads in to opening up a store, and that might give you a little bit of clarity. But the most important thing is like, don't do this on your own. I would go to the innovation quarters, talk to Melissa and the team there, and sort it out. One other thing I would add to that is that you're probably not reinventing the wheel, right? And if you are, good for you. But in this case, probably not. Look for other companies that do it or other solopreneurs who do what you're trying to do, and see if they don't give you a model to build off of, right? Look at their website, look at the services that they offer, just leave that, and then you could potentially just copy it and then innovate on it someday, right? You don't need to reinvent the wheel and start from scratch. Definitely not. I hope that helps.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that, John, for all the promo about the innovation quarters. Thank you. And I wanted to add to Habi and anybody else that wants like just a business consultation, the Regional Business Center, they will do those one-on-one consultations with you. So if you have questions and you're not entered into a program, then you can contact them for those types of questions. I just wanted to acknowledge a comment from Pamela. My action takeaway will be the run a message through AI. Is the message direct or empathetic enough? I love that. And John, what do you think? Do you have any comments to add on that?
No, I think that's that I wouldn't add anything to it. AI can be your business part. ChatGPT, as you know, my knowledge of AI, I'll be very honest, is very limited. I just use ChatGPT as kind of imagining that I have a whole bunch of people working for me, having different roles, and they can come up with ideas that that I couldn't possibly come up with. And so you could actually get started right now, just working with ChatGPT and just getting a little bit better of prompts and saying, imagine that you are a business advisor for Vistage International, and you're advising me on the financial aspects of starting a sole proprietorships that I should be aware of. What would you advise? What steps would you advise me to take, and who would you advise me to contact to get this started today? Something like that. Just something, the exact same thing that you would ask a human being, ask AI, and it'll get you kind of started on the path as you move forward.
Excellent. We have a comment from Yomi. Can you recommend any public speaking course or training? And when will you know when to resign your job and totally focus on your small business? Ties in with the question we had from Habi as well.
Well, for the first part, I would consider joining Toastmasters. That's probably the simplest thing to do. If you want to accelerate your journey, find a public speaking coach or a communications coach. They'll accelerate because that's one-on-one. And one other thing I would encourage you to do, and this was probably more valuable to me than public speaking, was to take an improv course, improvisation course, because improvisation teaches you to develop the confidence to be yourself and use your nonverbal language to communicate. And that becomes a critical component of influence when you're pitching, when you're presenting, and when you're speaking to people. With regards to the second question about when to quit your business, don't quit unless you have some sort of savings or you have some sort of support system in place to be able to sustain you. You know, there are stories of entrepreneurs who just go, I'm going to quit my job and get doing this. I will tell you, starting a business, as many of you, everyone on this call probably knows, is extremely, extremely difficult. Getting business takes time, effort, and quite often money, right? Unless you have enough clientele or you have enough sales in line, I wouldn't step away from it, right? That's my personal. Somebody else will probably say, yeah, just jump right in, go crazy. But that's not what I would tell you.
Great. We have a question from Gates that's in the Q&A. Would you say that the opportunities to launching a new product today are similar to the ones 10 to 20 years ago, given the boom and saturation of the tech industry today? Great question.
That's very interesting. That's very interesting. You know, and I don't have a good answer for you because I'm not a person who's heavily involved in the tech product environment, and I would be giving you a disservice. I will tell you that if you want to get a good answer for that, I would challenge you to ask a mentor in the tech space. And when I talk about mentorship and tech spaces, you don't have to limit yourself to local. Think international, right? There are incubators everywhere, right? Have a place that is local that you can go to, that you can start with and build from. But then, you know, go to incubator tech incubator 1871. You know, I'm a mentor there now because I shifted from a member to a mentor, and we got people calling in from Spain, from Australia, from Jamaica, wherever, because they all just joined because they wanted access to the resources and the mentors that were there as well. So I would really challenge you to think broader than just local. And to give you a truly honest answer to that tech space, I would encourage you to reach out to 1871 and see if they might have some insight into that, right? And if you want to connect with me via Melissa, I can connect you with them and we can help get you that answer because I don't want to just kind of blow off your answer. When I brought our product to life, we didn't really do any market research of whether the market was oversaturated, right? We just had a product. We found that there was a group of people that found interest in it and we were validated by it. One thing I will tell you, if any of you choose to do a crowdfunding, this is just kind of like an aside. It's like so much of life and of business. What you see on the outside isn't exactly true of how it really works on the inside. And in a crowdfunding, you have to kind of load the dice. And load the dice is in Indiegogo, for example. What gets people to buy into and invest into your product, into your idea, is that they see other people have done so. And so there's an icon that shows that you've reached your initial goal of funding. And there's also a desire to see that there's social proof that other people have bought into it. So what you want to do if you do decide to do a crowdfunding to test the market of your product is to line up a bunch of people to buy into what it is that you're going to put out there. And then you set your target low versus high. We made the mistake. We set it high and then the needle didn't change. You set it low, right? And so you reach your goal automatically very, very quickly. And then all of a sudden you have a lot of people who seem to show interest. And then in advance, you also reach out and contact news publications. That's where the first part of it is. We talked, one of the tips I didn't put in there is initiate, right? Our product was Mayo Clinic certified. Our product showed up in Chicago Tribune and on news channels and all sorts of stuff. But it's not because they necessarily found us. We went out and cold called them. We reached out, right? And we found these people. So that's part of it. So identify whose eyes you want to get this in front of, right? And then reach out, whatever your product is, and reach out to them. You'll find that people are very willing to be of assistance. But yeah.
Thank you so much for answering all of these questions and for your excellent presentation today. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us as well. We'll be sending over a short survey just after this event for your feedback. But again, big thank you.
Of course, my pleasure. And if
Okay.
anybody, if I could just add, if anybody wants to get a hold of me, can they contact you and you provide them my contact details if necessary through the...
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we can
Perfect.
do that. And also, like, we can share your website as well in the chat too. Go. Hey, all right. Well, take care, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Until next time.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.